Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth installment of how to save for your child's future videos. So today we're going to be going through a Q&A section so that we can try to answer some of the questions that you guys have. So I'm joined by Memkhanto, who is our financial analyst, and as you guys may know, or for those who are new to the channel, she is the lady behind everything that you see on our different platforms. So Memkhanto, let's get straight into it.
Right, so as Manraja has said, today we are going to go through some common questions that we get from parents and guardians regarding how to save for their children's future. So the first question that we often get is, when is the right time to start?
So the right time to start actually is yesterday. Sorry, but the best time to start is actually as early on the minute you have a child. The reason being, if I am going to be putting money away, making sure that you started that investment early on gives you the time or a longer time horizon to make sure that the compounding effect takes place and you actually get the most out of the money that you're putting away. So the earlier the better, the fewer or the smaller the contribution is going to be, then the bigger it's going to become in the end because of that time span. So let's say for instance I want to save for my child's university fees. That's probably going to be the next 19 to 18 years. So if they are born today and then I start from next month, it means I give them an 18-year period to actually grow that contribution. So 500, if you start at 500 or 300, that will go a long way when it comes to taking that type of effect into account.
Okay, the second question is, who can contribute towards, I guess, a policy?
Right. So for instance, in terms of who can contribute, anyone can contribute that wants to. So some people are lucky enough to have grandparents that want to actually have savings for their children. So for instance, a grandparent can open up an investment in the name of a minor. You might have a grandparent might say, for that education policy that you actually want to open up, not be the premium payer. So you can choose who can become a premium payer, or you can even choose whose account a debit order gets drawn from. So long as there is that consent where the grandparent or the guardian or an aunt or someone else says, I'm the one who's going to be taking care of the monthly contributions towards this policy or investment.
So would the same apply for a pure investment?
Yeah, the same thing would apply to a pure investment. So let's say the investment is in the name of the minor. So what you do is just that the person that wants to be paying or contributing towards that gives the asset manager or wherever this pure investment is opened with, wherever that may be, a consent that says on a monthly basis, please deduct 200 Rand, for example, from my account, and every single month that 200 will become that contribution that will into that particular account. So long as there is that consent from the owner's account to say, take out this much on a monthly basis, then that's all.
So, like other family members could also help towards paying for education. Like, for example, I could help towards my niece's education.
Yes, you can actually do that as well. So, for instance, if you actually decide that you want to be contributing a certain amount, so long as you give the person where the investment is sitting an authorization to be deducting that amount from your account, you can do that. Sometimes you might not even have a debit order set in place. You might find that during the year you have excess funds that you actually want to put towards your education. Then you actually say, okay, I'm going to take this money, and then you do what you call an additional lump sum, an additional contribution to the investment fund. So that additional contribution can be in the form of a lump sum or that once-off contribution that you actually make on behalf of investing for your education. Yeah.
Another question that we often get is, after how long will I access the funds?
So this one I think is a popular one because I think given how everyone has been thinking about investments or how Bitcoin or Ponzi schemes, have been the popular investment that most people come to mind is, how much do I have to give? How much am I going to get? What's the interest and after how long? So when it comes to legitimate investment, time, I can never emphasize the importance of time. Here we're not talking about exponentially huge amounts of interest. We're talking about 10 to 15 or 20%, depending where you are invested. As we have shared in previous videos, if I'm invested in shares, then the interest will probably be higher. But now we want to say, if I am invested in a certain investment vehicle, how long should I be invested there to make sure that the rewards are being there? There's no use for me to be needing money in the next year and investing in a very volatile stock market, for instance, because I might stand the risk of losing money due to the volatility of the stock or share markets. But if I know I'm going to be invested in this for my child's education, which is probably going to go to varsity for the next 18 years, the riskier the investment, the higher the interest I'm going to earn on that one. So when it comes to genuine, true investments, we always have to take into consideration why you are actually investing. How much time do you have to invest, and what is the suitable investment in your portfolio? So different strokes for different folks. So upon assessment, that's when you will decide where you need to be placing, why you need to be in that particular investment.
Alright, the last question sort of relates to the previous question.
Okay.
People often ask, what did disappear?
So I think that's the other thing, because of the Ponzi schemes and everything else. As you know, it is a pyramid, as we put it, the pyramid scheme. And if you're at the bottom of the food chain and there's nothing coming up or no one coming in or joining, then it means your money is gone forever. So most times we are looking to invest, or actually all the time, we're looking to invest with registered institutions that are actually registered with the regulatory authorities. Here at home you will have the Central Bank of Lesotho. In South Africa you will have the FSCA. So there are different bodies out there, international bodies as well. But to make sure that whatever or whoever that we're dealing with is registered and it is a known entity that subscribes to the right ethics and protocols and regulations to make sure that your money is safe. So after that Q&A that we've just had with Member Council, I actually thought it's quite important to actually discuss the few considerations that all guardians and parents should be making before starting that investment for their child's education. So like we've said, it can come in the form of an education policy that's held with the insurer, or it can be a pure investment that you actually open up on behalf of your child. So the first point that we're actually looking for is the type of education. So let's say, for instance, you want to take your child to the most expensive private schools. So looking around and shopping around and making sure that you know the actual cost of that particular school you want to take your child to also goes a long way, because if you were to come into my office today and you say, I want to take my school to a certain school and the annual tuition in that particular year is 100,000 or it's 20,000, then we now sit down together and do the necessary calculations to make sure how much it is that you need to be putting away on a monthly basis. That will now inform if you actually are able to afford that from your from your budget perspective. So it's something that we also want to consider. You also want to consider, when do you want to start paying for your child's education from this particular pool of funds that you're putting away? Do you want it to start at primary level? Do you want it to start at high school level? Do you want it to be for their tertiary education, their postgrad? So all of that also has to be taken into consideration, because the longer the period you have, the more you're going to take advantage of that compounding period, and then the less you would actually have to put away in real terms today, just because of that time factor. So an example being, if for instance I start saving for my child at age 5 and you start saving for your child at age 10, or someone starts when the child is actually just has been born, that means we're going to have the different time periods. So even if we're taking our kids to the same school with the same monetary costs, but the savings that we're going to have to be putting away today are going to be totally different based on that time to put away the money. So then the one is how much you're going to contribute. So how much you're going to contribute is actually informed by the type of school that you want to take your kids to. The second one is how much time do you have until they go to that particular school. The other one is your affordability, which I think is the most important one. You need to make sure that you're not bending over backwards to make sure that you're taking your kid to a certain school that actually then affects your other aspects of your life and the general quality of your life in general. Then the next one is, where do you want to send them to study? Are they studying overseas? Are they going to be studying locally? Will they be in SA? Will they be in China? Will they be in Australia? So we now need to have that global perspective, and we now need to see that the world is your child's oyster. And then there's quite a huge possibility that unlike us, they're going to go beyond the borders that we have been able to reach. So with that as well, it means then we need to cater for those extramural activities, if any, that are going to make sure that they broaden our horizons. Whether it's traveling, you make sure that you expose them to these different things. So also you need to compare the different options that are there. So with an insurance contract, for instance, sometimes you're able to draw a loan and then pay it back. Then with an investment, you have it accessible to you any point in time. You just discuss with your advisor, and then you withdraw the funds, and then you can cater for expenses that may arise, that you know that this expense is actually quite beneficial for my child's education and future. Then the other one is, how are you funding this education? Are you going to fund it through a lump sum? So you might find that some people, for instance, who have very good cash flows, and here I'm talking about solid balance sheets and income statements where they have excess amounts on a monthly basis. So those type of people actually never have to think about how much are they going to put away to their child's education. Truth be told, if I have more than enough on a monthly basis that can actually take care of my child's living expenses now and in the future, saving for investing or for their education, or having an educator policy or education policy might not be quite a factor for me. But if, for instance, I know that funds are tight and I'm a person who needs to stick to that budget, taking care of those contributions and putting away money today might go a very long way for me, because if I know, for instance, that I won't be able to afford the tuition in 10 or 15 years time, then starting to save today might go a long way in helping me to be able to afford the kind of education I want to afford my children. So these are the simple tips that I've just shared. I know it might be a mouthful. You might need to pause, grab some popcorn, grab a notebook, grab your own education policy, and try to sit down here and see if what we have shared throughout the series applies to you, and start asking those questions. And like I have been saying, we want to get the conversation going. So please leave the comments down below in the comment section, and make sure that you start the conversation going. Ask us questions, and we will try to answer them to the best of our abilities. But do remember to subscribe, share, and like this video, and hit that notification bell so that you get notified whenever we share such useful content. So see you next time, and bye.